Did you know that Inside Out has a backstory that was never told? It also has no bad guy on purpose. All this and more I will be talking about in today's video. So stick around to find out the untold truth of Inside Out. With a heartstring pulling sequel on the way, it seems like the best time to learn everything you didn't know about the original. Since the main characters of Inside Out are embodiments of complex human emotions, simple physical designs were crucial to the film's story to work on a visual level. That's why the team at Pixar put a particular focus on making sure each emotion could evoke their personalities through the basic shapes of their character designs. Director Pete Docter went into detail about how the shapes and figures of the emotions were carefully thought out behind the scenes. The movie's character art director explained to The Hollywood Reporter that the team began the design process for the emotions by focusing on basic, simple shapes, before expanding beyond them. Joy is arguably the main character of the film, besides Riley herself, and her design is meant to resemble a star or sunburst of happiness to reflect her optimistic behavior. Sadness naturally started as a teardrop, while anger began as a simple brick with fire spewing out of its head. Disgust and fear were a little more complicated, with the two being based more on the looks of specific people rather than abstract objects. Disgust took more inspiration from characters like Aubrey Plaza's April from Parks and Recreation, while fear was heavily inspired by the bulgy-eyed look of characters like Mr. Bean. Pixar is known for doing their due diligence when it comes to research for their movies, and Inside Out was no exception to that rule. As a film dealing with some deep and complicated concepts such as the emotions of adolescence and the workings of the human mind, the studio's storytellers knew they needed some experts. As a result, the team spoke to Dr. Paul Ekman, who believed there were 6 core emotions playing major roles in human development: anger, sadness, joy, fear, disgust, and surprise. Clearly, the Pixar team used this theory as a springboard, incorporating all of those into the plot of Inside Out, except for surprise, which was merged into fear. It's kind of an interesting concept. Another consultant on the production was Dr. Kilchner, I think I said that right, a UC Berkeley professor of psychology who believes that sadness is a fundamental element of human bonding and an essential way that people relate to each other through shared empathy. This philosophy was embraced by Docter and the writing team in a way that became the central conflict of the film through the relationship between joy and sadness, as well as Riley's eventual embracing of her own sadness regarding the move to a new home. One of the saddest moments in Inside Out comes from the character Bing Bong, an imaginary friend of Riley who has been forgotten as she's grown out of childhood. Considering his importance in the movie, many may wonder why exactly Bing Bong was kept hidden from any official press before the movie came out. The answer is quite simple: surprise. And you thought this 6th emotion was totally left out of the movie. Keep in mind that the character wasn't mentioned in any art, interviews, or merchandise. There wasn't even any official announcement of Richard Kind being cast in the movie. With audiences not even expecting the character's entrance, they'd be even less prepared for his exit. Since Bing Bong's farewell scene has gone on to be one of the saddest in Pixar history for many fans, including myself, it seems like their choice to keep it on the down low worked wonders. Pixar has been around for a long time, and some might forget that its origins are intertwined with none other than Apple founder Steve Jobs. Jobs purchased the Young Animation Studio from LucasArts in the 80s and fostered the direction of the company away from hardware to focus entirely on the development of animated films. This is still one of the most inspirational stories of all time, in my opinion. Literally go watch my Toy Story history video a couple months back because it kind of explains the whole beginnings of Pixar. What's important to realize, however, is that Jobs continued to have input on every Pixar film from then on, even after he sold the studio to Disney. Many leaders of the company's early days, including John Lasseter and Edwin Catmull, would go on record saying that Jobs was essential to the stewardship of Pixar, providing key opinions on the stories they were developing. Inside Out, however, was the first movie Pixar made without any input from Jobs, as it didn't even enter production until after his death in 2011, making this the first Pixar movie without Steve Jobs. But it looks like they learned every little thing they could from him during his time with them, because Inside Out is still easily one of the best movies from Pixar. While Inside Out ended up sticking with the core 5 emotions of joy, anger, disgust, sadness, and fear, there were other emotions up for consideration early in the movie's production. Because of the discussions the development team had with scientists and experts, they actually drafted up a much larger list of emotions that could be personified inside the 11-year-old Riley's head. Some of the emotions that ended up being cut from the film included greed, love, love, hope, and pride, just to name a few. There were also some more unusually named emotions that invoke very specific feelings, rather than broader concepts. Ennu, which we know is going to appear in Inside Out 2. So maybe all these emotions will decide to come into this next movie. Ultimately, these emotions were seen as auxiliary to the core 5, and their traits were essentially bundled into the characters we ended up seeing in the movie. But with Inside Out 2 coming out and having these new emotions moving in, I beg to differ that these emotions are branching from the core 5, and the core 5 have to figure out a way to keep them all in line. It's gonna be absolutely bonkers, and I'm here for it. An important element of Inside Out is the idea of memories and how crucial they are to our emotions. In the story, the emotions inside Riley's head are able to conjure memories at any time in the form of little glowing balls, which can then be relived in detail. And honestly, I wish we could do that now, because you know how many times I've forgotten about memories that I've had back in the day? I wish I could remember every little thing that was in my life. That would be like absolutely wonderful. Every memory has an associated emotion, color-coded with, for example, yellow for joy and blue for sadness. And several moments in Riley's life are seen through the narrative device. What's particularly strange is that in some of these memories, other Pixar movies can be seen. While this may be more of a Pixar Easter egg than anything, it's still an interesting creative choice to place the studio's previous works into a library of treasured memories. Throughout the halls of memory cores, you can see glimpses of the opening from Up in Riley's memory banks, which set me on a theory of them being her grandparents through adoption or something, since Carl and Ellie didn't have a kid, or perhaps she saw Up the movie, which would imply that some Pixar movies exist as movies within the universe of other Pixar movies. Yeah, this is getting kind of trippy and confusing, but I love it. Inside Out is a deeply emotional film, like quite literally. It tells the story of a girl on the verge of adolescence who is struggling to deal with big life changes as a result. Her emotions themselves even struggle to interpret what's wrong with the person they're responsible for. And the heart of the story comes when you realize that all the conflicting emotions you're feeling, even if they're sad sometimes, are needed. It's a beautiful message that was partly inspired by the director's own experiences, watching his real-life daughter go through similar circumstances. Director Pete Docter spoke candidly in an interview with the Washington Post about where certain ideas in Inside Out came from. He discussed how years before the movie came into existence, he started thinking about it because his daughter began shifting from a happy, goofy spirit to someone more reserved. He recognized those changes in his own childhood as well, in a time when his parents moved him from Minnesota all the way to Denmark, which is a detail that was brought into Riley's story in the film too, however just replacing Denmark with San Francisco. Ultimately, watching his children grow up instilled a single question into Pete Docter that became the heart of the movie.
Do you ever look at someone and wonder what is going on inside their head?
Luckily, Inside Out attempts to answer that question with kindness, empathy, and a deeper understanding of what makes us human. And talking about being human, it should come as no surprise that a movie as emotional as Inside Out would cause even the people making it to feel some deep emotions of their own. What may be surprising, though, is that just the pitch for Inside Out alone caused two of its main actors to start crying before they even got to work. In Inside Out, Mindy Kaling and Bill Hader play the emotions of disgust and fear, but the presentation that Pixar prepared brought entirely different emotions out of them. Kaling and Hader both come from comedic backgrounds, and although they've each had impressive careers in the entertainment industry, apparently their coming together for Inside Out was partly based on their emotional reactions to the story. Kaling and Hader were given a heartwarming PowerPoint presentation by Pete Docter that pitched the movie around his experiences with his own daughter, and they just could not say no. But the process to make Inside Out was way more harder than we thought. While Inside Out eventually became a critical and commercial success, the production problems it faced while being developed may have made that feel unlikely to the filmmakers at the time. It turns out that the movie took over 5 years to make from beginning to end, and proved to be very taxing on Pixar. While it eventually earned prestigious accolades including an Oscar, a BAFTA, and a Golden Globe, it was undeniably a long road to get there. Pete Docter also admitted that at one point, they even had to scrap everything they were working on and start fresh. 3 years in. I think my mind would absolutely explode. Inside Out is a story story about the unseen conflicts that go on within our minds, but fans may have noticed that there's no real villain in the movie for the main characters to face off against. This was actually by design, as the creators developed a general sense of gloom to be the main antagonist of the story. Quite literally genius, if you ask me. Originally, there was going to be a noticeably dark cloud that grew larger as the movie went on, as you can see by this concept art, but this idea was dropped in favor of simply having a gray color creep into the movie's palette as Riley's headspace gave way to despair. And this is something that I don't think any audience probably caught on to, and it's the little details that Pixar does that literally makes me love this company so much and their storytelling. In many ways, this decision functions to let audiences relate to Riley even more as she defeats something less tangible but more real than a mustache twirling villain through her emotional growth. And there you have it, all the untold truth about Inside Out. What did you think about all these behind the scenes concepts and ideas? Does knowing this make you love this movie even more? And how excited are you for Inside Out 2? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, consider liking and sharing it with a friend. Subscribe for more videos like this. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.